Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast chat. And today we're going to chat a little bit about calisthenics, which I know people bring it up a lot. They're like, well, Jason, you seem to like some of these movements. Why don't you ever talk about calisthenics? And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys because I don't think it deserves its own category of training. That would be like saying, hey, Jason, you seem to like some dumbbells for certain things. Why don't you talk about dumbbell training as a training system? Calisthenics is just not a complete training system. It isn't, and there's nothing special about it. Now, that offends a lot of people who are serious about it, but I have to be blunt and honest. I am a strength coach. It's what I do right now. It's my profession. I do make more money and spend more time coaching athletes than I do making YouTube videos. So, in my case, when someone is hiring me to make them better as an athlete, I can't get caught up in being dogmatic about, hey, this over here is the primary and awesomest training tool we should use and use it almost exclusively if something else is a better fit, right? And there are limitations to calisthenics, and I like a lot of body weight exercises. Let's just call them that, body weight movements that you also have the ability to load, right? Because using just pure body weight is very limiting, and people will say, what about this or that? I'm like, they're still not strong top to bottom. They have strong arms and pecs and lats. They're not strong. And it's very, very difficult to be completely well-rounded and strong using a limited system like that. I'm not saying it can't be done, but the time and effort and planning is far more involved. And I'll go so far as to say that if someone wanted to compete in some calisthenics sport, I would still have them barbell train. We would still use free weights for the majority of their training. Why wouldn't we? It's what we use for the majority of everyone's training. So I don't like the idea of, hey, I'm a calisthenics purist. And it's silly. That's like saying I'm going to be a dumbbell purist. I'm going to use nothing but dumbbells. Well, why are you limiting yourself like that? That's ridiculous. Right? For strength building, we should be using barbells as a primary tool. And there's a good reason for that. Like if you wanted to be a purist and say, I'm going to stick with one major training modality, actually loadable barbells would make the most sense from a total strength and development perspective, because you actually have the ability to get the entire body strong top to bottom with the largest amount of exercise variation available, and the ability to micro-load and program all of it, right, using the best programming methods, because we have the ability to micro-load weights. And again, the exercise variation is much higher. There's a reason I use mostly barbells and have all these different specialty bars, right? I have a lot of different barbells. It's for a good reason, but I still wouldn't recommend that. I don't think we should ever say, hey, this one training method and modality here is the only thing we should use. And I use Conjugate, which is the most eclectic training system known to man. So when people say, well, you seem to be dogmatic and like Conjugate, yeah, but Conjugate isn't exactly dogmatic, is it? Conjugate allows for you to incorporate barbell work, all sorts of specialty bars, dumbbells, machines, body weight exercises, GPP. The system is designed to incorporate any of these things you need along with your sport-specific training. And if someone wanted to technically be a calisthenics athlete in some sort of competition, we would do sport-specific training for that, but we would build their strength base with free weights. But I don't see body weight exercises as different from free weights, and that's what people need to understand. It's just another exercise. In other words, I don't say, hey, a barbell bench is better than a dip for development. No, they're just both useful tools, right? They're useful tools. They're forms of resistance. They're forms of resistance. They have to be loaded differently. Programming's a little different, right? But they're just resistance at the end of the day. They're just tools in a toolbox, and you can't be married to a tool. And that's where I think people get silly with that. They would actually probably be better at their calisthenic stuff if they incorporated free weights to make sure that they're well-rounded and to bring up weak points and everything else. It would actually be better at it. And when I say it's limited, I'm saying is that it is almost impossible to get truly strong. Okay, you can build fair amount of upper body muscle and strength. I'm not going to deny that, but there are some potential imbalances, right? Things like your upper back, rear delts, things like that can actually become weak links. If you're spending most of your time doing dips and push-ups and pull-ups and chin-ups, you actually have the potential for a high risk of shoulder impingement. Right? It may not be the form of training you want to use exclusively for 20 years. I'm in my 40s. I've been doing this a long time. I still lift really, really heavy. And I'm able to do so at my age. Reasons I'm able to get away with that. So you come over to that, you're at higher risk of shoulder impingement. You really do need some free weights in there. You really need some. And the same thing, they'll say, we can get extra shoulder work with handstand push-ups. Handstand push-ups are a half rep. It's not even a full range of motion exercise. What are you talking about? And you're still neglecting a lot of the muscles of the upper back potentially, meaning they're not getting untrained. They are being trained, but you're going to have imbalances. You're going to have too strong of anterior delts, too strong of lats relative to posterior delts, rhomboids, things like that. And that actually puts you at risk of injury. Plus, you don't have enough movement variations, and you're still equipment limited. People say, well, we don't need equipment. Yes, you do. Yeah, you do need equipment for bodyweight exercises. What are you talking about? It'd be really nice to have a couple different angles of bars to do your dips on and to do your different types of pull-ups and stuff with. There's still equipment involved. Same thing, if you're going to try to do any form of range of motion on a handstand push-up, you need special bars for that. You can't just do that just anywhere with no equipment. Right? And then the lower body, it's almost impossible. You are never going to get strong. You're never going to develop a strong, powerful, developed lower body, which we need for every sport on earth, doing pistol squats. Pistol squats are not even that great for quads. They have limits. You're spending more energy balancing than actually building and strengthening the muscle tissue. That is inherently limiting. You will never build the hip and quad and glute strength that you will with weights. You will not even get into the same realm with a pistol squat. And then you have no real way to train the posterior chain. Again, the hip extensors, this is where we get power for every sport, whether it's jumping, sprinting, kicking, hip extension. That is, again, the single most important set of muscles for athletic performance and strength is hip extension. You are extremely limited there with this style of training. Therefore, I would argue that from an overall perspective, it's the least athletic form of training you could be doing. So, I view it as good supplemental exercises. As far as supplemental movements go, pull-ups and chin-ups are phenomenal. They're great exercises, right? They are great tools. But that's not the only thing you should be doing, right? Not the only thing you should be doing. So again, my issue is not with bodyweight exercises. Lots of bodyweight exercises are really fantastic tools, and I use them, I coach them. But we also need to make sure that you need to be able to load them, meaning you don't just stick to just body weight. That's not good programming. That's being dogmatic. Well, we could just do this and I could go to one arm. Well, still not the same thing, and you know it. It is limiting for no reason other than to be dogmatic. So that's my problem with when people, push calisthenics as being something really special or amazing. It's not. They're just movements, right? They're just resistance training. It's just one more tool in the toolbox. And if you treat it that way, just like we treat stuff with the power bar, standard straight bar, they're just tools in the toolbox. When you look at it that way, you're able to have a more complete training system. You're able to build better athletes. You're able to get bigger, stronger, faster, more effectively, and more efficiently. It's when we get dogmatic and say, oh, this is the only tool we should be using. That's when it becomes a problem, right? And we shouldn't get caught up on it. And people say, well, I really love calisthenics. Oh, why? There's nothing special about it. I'm not saying you shouldn't love it, but if you love those, then you should love all types of resistance training, right? You should love barbell work too then. They're all just useful tools. You have to treat them as such. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.